Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable of the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with addictions of all varieties. Just grateful to be here. I'm Justin B., a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a multidisciplinary addict living in the miraculous promises of recovery. And I'm blessed to be the moderator of this roundtable, sitting around the table with David G. and Nikki M. And we're going to jump into today pretty quick, but I'll have David introduce himself, and then we'll go to Nikki, and then we'll get into the work here.
Yeah, absolutely. David G., alcoholic, addict, recovered. Grateful to be a member of the Fellowship of the Spirit. Really glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Nikki, you're up.
Nikki, grateful member and a spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation. And I know we're getting through this into the work, but if this podcast is helping you, don't forget about the seventh tradition. I'll put that in there today. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. All right. Yeah, so last time we got together and talked, we read a couple of paragraphs in about fear, and we're going to read the next couple of paragraphs on page 68 in the Big Book, chapter 5, How It Works, starting with Perhaps There Is a Better Way, and ending with We Commenced to Outgrow Fear. So just a couple of paragraphs, and then we're going to get into some exercises in this after we review it real quick that hopefully will be something that will be very helpful for you, the listening audience. So open up your Big Book, get your pen, highlighter, paper out, get ready to take notes. Here we go. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. And there's a lot in there, and I'm excited to get through this. Nikki, why don't you jump in and give us a line by line some of the takeaways you have from that reading?
Yes, because we both want to get to David G's exercise, which is going to be great for all of us. I'm just going to read this and just skim through some things. And I'm going to ask everybody in the rooms in this program, believe these two paragraphs, like believe it with every soul. So I'm going to read it as I believe it. Nikki, there is a better way. A better way than what? Than relying on self. We think so. I know so. For now, right now, Nikki is on a different basis. See, my old life is gone. I've made this decision, and now I'm on a different basis. I don't do that anymore. I don't believe that belief system and old ideas anymore. I trust and rely upon God, the spiritual principles, this power. Nikki, trust an infinite God. See, that's my statement. That's my belief. That's who I am, rather than relying on my finite self. Here it is, everybody. You have to believe these things. Nikki is in the world to play the role God assigned. And today, in 2024, I'm assigned the role of a caretaker for my 95-year-old aunt, my mom. Years ago in 1992, I was assigned the role of being a mother to my daughter. Years ago, all these different things, I get assigned different roles. And just to the extent that we do as we think this power, capital H, He, the creator of the universe, would have us, I'm to humbly, that is, be quiet, Nikki, and toe the line. If you don't know what toe the line means, Google it, and rely upon this power, the spiritual principles, and these directions in this book that will lead me to the spirit of the sunlight. Does He, this power, enable Nikki to match all this calamity, all this horrible situations that is fake news in my mind, and I can match that with calamity? I have to let God navigate. Now see, here it is, another statement real quick. I am to never apologize. I'm to never apologize to anyone. There's a statement. Don't do it for depending upon the creator of the universe. I'm not going to laugh at people, but we can secretly know that, I used to be that person. Spirituality is for the weak. I know what I'm doing, but I now know it is the way of strength. See, I can just look through the verdict of the ages that faith means courage. Anybody who I want what they have believes in a power greater than themselves. All humans of faith have courage, not just men, women. Okay. They trust their God. Everyone go deep. Think about who you want what they have. They trust a higher power of their own understanding. They never apologize for God. Here's your instruction. And I want to get to David. What are we to do? Instead of being in fear, we are all collectively to let this power demonstrate through us. Let God use us and show what this power can do. The power of love, exactly what David, lets everybody show what love can do, no matter what. This is your instruction. When you are in fear and you are liquid shitting your pants because you can't deal with life, you are to ask God to remove. So simple. God, remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. At once, very fast, I am going to outgrow fear. I've done that. I have been blacked out in an emotional blackout, codependent blackout, and I followed the instruction. God, remove this fear. God, remove this fear. God, remove this fear. Direct my attention. Go serve. Be helpful. Do what pause. You're agitated. Follow the instructions. May you find God now. Get here now. It's gone. Okay, David, let's go. I hope that was quick.
Thank you, Nikki. Woo! Going through there. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. So, David, in the last episode, you mentioned and you talked a little bit about this fear inventory, this fear process that you go through with your sponsees, with people that you work with. Let's do that. Maybe you have a few comments here real quick, but let's jump into that and walk through doing that.
Yeah, let's just jump into it. If anyone listening out there really wants to go line by line in depth with this, I do have a YouTube channel where I did the entire big book from the title page all the way to 164 at the end. So jump on that. I mean, it really goes into deep detail there. But here, I'm going to drop down to the very last paragraph, the prayer that Nikki just so beautifully went over. It says, we never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us, through you, what he can do. See, I've never been able to do that because I'm always the one doing something. My prayer, I ask him to remove my fear, direct my attention to what he would have me be. See, it doesn't say what he would have me to do. I always think I need to do something, and that's where I get in trouble. And at once we commence to outgrow fear. So my template, which I'm happy to put up here, is, or to give to Justin to put out. My template is, let's just say, for instance, that I was working with Nikki in this, and she brought to me one of her fears would be getting close to others. Okay, we're going to write that down on the top of the page. The first 6 questions are always going to be the same. They're never going to change. And here they are. 1, I fear getting close to others. 2, why? 3, it's always going to be the same, because self-reliance failed me. 4, what could I do when I experience this fear? We're going to meditate on these. 5, as with all fears, I could trust and rely upon God. That's what our book tells us to do. 6, when was the first time I experienced this fear? Now it's your turn. I want you to meditate, and I want you to write. Here's what came up in mind. When I was a kid with my mother and my stepdad, there wasn't a lot of love and affection. There just wasn't. And I was very afraid I wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough. I was, something mattered with me. Couldn't be anything mattered with them. Here's another question. What trains of circumstances does this fear of getting close to others set in motion? Now I'm going to start looking at how this manifests itself. 1, I keep everyone at arm's length. Now I'm doing this prayerfully. This ain't shit that's just rolling out of my head. If I'm not doing this prayerfully because there was no amen at the end of step 3, then I've completely just blown the whole damn thing, because I'm still writing it from self. So 1, I keep people at arm's length. 2, I get them before they can get me. I'm into jail, and that's what you do. That's just what you do. See, next one. I lie, I cheat, and I run over others. That's what that fear of being close to others, that's the train of circumstances it sets in motion. I act like something I'm not. Even in recovery, I do that. I want you to think I'm one thing while I'm living a secret life and doing something different. I don't want you to know I'm afraid. You might think I'm weak. Next one. I act out to feel good about me. Porn addicts that are listening to this, you ever do that? Not feel good about yourself? You get afraid. Need a little bit of power. I need something to change the way I'm feeling. Well, I feel good momentarily when I do that, right? What about this one? I make promises that, and then I don't live up to it. That's something that was set into motion. Self-sufficiency. I play games to get attention and confirmation. Then I feel like I'm wanted by someone, right? So I see that just from that one fear, this is all the trains of circumstances that fear set into motion, just over that one fear. Now I'm going to flip that question around. What would it look like if I trusted and relied upon God when I experienced this fear of getting close to other people? And now I'm going to want to take a deep look at that prayerfully. So the first thing is, I would stay close to prayer and I would trust God. That's something I could do. Wow. What would he have me be? He would have me be prayerful and trustful. Wow. Next one. I realize that no one can hurt me unless I put myself in that position. Now, when I'm a kid, that's something different. I had no power over that. But as time went on through the years, I absolutely have the power to do that. Next, I'm not going to put myself in a position or circle with people that I shouldn't, particularly with women. And the reason that I asked you to contact my sister Nikki in case you wanted these templates and stuff, it's not because of you. It's because of my past experience and the things I've done. I'm on a different plane now. I'm not going to put myself in a personal circle where I shouldn't be. I mean, I had a friend that got shot in the chest whenever he was robbing a pharmacy. He recovered from that gunshot, but he's damn sure not bulletproof, and neither am I. I'm not going to stand in front of a loaded gun. I'm just not. Next one, I'd be open and honest. I'd be pure. I'd be unselfish, and I'd be loving. That's what God would have me be. And then the last one, at least in my prayer part of it right here, is I would allow others to come in with me in a healthy way. That's a very powerful one. So I see we have a few minutes left. Do you want to go through one more, or do you just want to call it good there? Either way is fine with me.
You know what? Are you okay with doing kind of a real life thing with me? And me like posting sharing a fear and going through that with me? Is that something we could do in about
Absolutely.
12 minutes or so?
Throw one out there.
Okay. So here's my situation. I just released a new podcast, and I have fear of failure and fear of success in this. That either it's going to bomb or what's going to happen if it goes crazy, and I just have this fear that just freezes me.
So my first question to you in this template, and you would be writing this, would be why? Just bullet point.
Why do I have that fear?
You have that fear.
Past history of failure in lots of projects, of not following through on things that I start. I just have, and I fear well, here it is. I fear what my wife's going to think of me when I fail.
Okay. So if you wiped all of that out, would it be safe to say it's because self-reliance failed you?
Absolutely. Yes.
So my next question to you would be, what could you do when you experience this fear?
I could turn to God, and like what you said previously, I could be prayerful and trust that this project that I believe is given to me from God is really that.
Okay. So my next question to you would be, when was the first instance you remember having this fear?
Yeah. And when you asked that question earlier, I sat back and I thought, when was the first time I experienced this fear of failure, fear of outcome? I think it is when I didn't measure up to what I thought my parents' expectations were of me when I was really, really young. Probably the first time I played baseball, and uh, I wasn't amazing. And that fear, I think that might be it.
Awesome. So my next question, it's on this template, and of course, listeners, this would be you writing it. What trains of circumstances does this fear of failing in your new podcast set in motion? Give me about 4 or 5 of them.
So ask the question again as I write this down, please, David.
What trains of circumstances does this fear of your new podcast, fear of failure of your new podcast set in motion?
That I will be viewed as less than.
Okay.
That others will judge me as just another person that's seeking glory and falls on his face.
Okay.
And honestly, I think it all has to do with my image, my public image.
Yeah. Okay. So you see how many times the word I and my and me was there?
Yep, a lot.
So now we're going to flip that around. I'm going to ask you a different question. What would it look like if you were to trust and rely upon God when you experience this fear of failing in your podcast? What would it look like if you trusted and relied upon God?
It would look like, well, your will, not mine, be done. And your plan for me is different than what I envision my plan for me being. And I will trust that. I will practice acceptance, to use some Big Book, some recovery language there.
Do you feel like you'd be successful if you
I
trust?
would be successful in whatever God had for me to do. Yes.
Do you feel like many people would be helped by that podcast as a result of relying upon God?
Yes, I do.
You feel like you would be open and honest and pure and unselfish and loving and tell the truth?
If I relied on God, absolutely. Yes.
So this becomes your focus. Let's look at the prayer again on page 68. We ask God to remove our fear, and your fear was of being a failure in your upcoming podcast. Now we're going to ask him to direct your attention to what he would have you be. Well, you just wrote down what he would have you to be. You would be trustful, you'd be honest, you'd be loving, you'd be unselfish. You would do it in the spirit of helping other people. This is what God would have you to be. See, at once you commence to outgrow the fear. Now you're on a different plane. You're on the plane of faith. So we're going to focus more on that back column than we are any of the rest. But we need to look at how self-reliance has failed you if you go into that. And then we need to look at how faith is going to carry you through if you practice it on this end. Does that make sense in the way that we do the fear inventory?
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think it's something that can be very helpful. David, like you said, I look forward to getting this fear template and being able to share it with anybody who asks for it, and go from there. Nikki, do you have any other thoughts or questions about this?
Yes, I want to jump in because I wrote my own. And so, fear. And I know I sponsor a lot of women, and it's fear of abandonment. And why do I have that fear? Well, past history. Everyone's left me, and I'm just going through with what David was asking you, did self-reliance fail me? Yes. And David, if you want to jump in and question me on this, I have this fear, and it's most people, the abandonment, I'll be alone forever. Why do you have that fear? Past history. Daddy wasn't there. Baby daddy, number 1 and 2. My self-reliance has failed me. Yes. And then you asked again, question, what can you, Nikki, do when you experience? Is that what was the next question, right? What can I do when I experience this? Was that the next question?
Yeah. What could you do when you experienced this fear? Was it being alone?
Abandonment.
Abandonment. What could you do when you experienced this fear of abandonment?
Well, as you just said, I have to pause and prayerfully get into the great reality. For me, I get into the book. I believe my book. So, but there's moments, David, recently where I can't even think of the book, for I can't bring into consciousness that, the truth of what I'm to do. Does that make sense?
It does. And the reason why is we're going to look at why, and then we're going to look at the answer to that. So that question I ask you is always going to have the same answer. I will trust and rely upon God. Now,
absolutely.
I can that, but my actions will show something different. And I'm about to ride them, you know what I'm saying? So, okay, what trains of circumstances does that fear of abandonment set in motion? Give me 5 or 6 of them.
I want to go back though. You said, when did you first have this fear? Yeah. And I had it as a child, David. My mom left Toronto to move to California when I was 1 year old. So abandonment right at 1, never knew what my dad looked like. So I think it even might've started in utero. I know people go, I had my first drink in utero, but I really think all the emotions in my mother, because she was in fear the whole time, it's all on me. So that's when it first started. So what trains of circumstances of this fear of abandonment, what it sets in others judging me, exactly what people think of me. I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
Image, as Justin said, and it's all about me.
Yeah. And you see that's self-reliance. See, for me, this is what sets in those this is what I do to try to put the fires out. I'm running around trying to put all these fires out. And this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm believing. And this is the way I'm treating others. But then I'll flip that question around and throw it back to you again. What would it look like if you trusted and relied upon God when you experienced this fear of abandonment? What would that look like? And then I would ask you to write that. What would that look like?
And I did. And so what it looks like, and everybody, please, I've been here 12 years. So in year 1, it would have never looked like this, David. But I've been here for 12 years. So I want everyone to know that, because it instantly looks like pause. I mean, I know how to do that. And I don't mean I'll say and go crazy, but I know if I am to do this, I have to pause. I need to get somewhere quiet and alone with God, or I don't make it, because I get real weird in my driven of madness. I say and do things that are incomprehensible to people I love.
No, but what would it look like if you trusted and relied upon God?
I would pause. My relationship will be restored. I can do the 4 absolutes. I can be honest and pure and loving. And I can dedicate. What would it look like? It would look like helping others, because that then gets me instantly out of the fear of abandonment when I rely upon God. So I just pause. I know that all my relationships will be restored. And then I actually also, as you say that, I can drift out into not morbid reflection, but euphoric. Because what does it look like if I trust God and rely upon God? It's always been a wonderful outcome, David.
Yeah.
If I drift into morbid reflection, that God does do these things. It's a miracle. So I can, rather than morbid reflect, I'll just drift into euphoric. Because what would it look like? What does it look like when I do trust God? All my relationships are stored to glory.
Yeah. And so that's where we're going to go, is back to the prayer in the book. And we're going to ask him to remove your fear of abandonment. We're going to ask him to direct your attention daily, not just this one time while you're writing this, to what he would have you to be. You just wrote that down. You would pause, you would pray, you would trust, you'd be honest, you'd be loving, you'd be unselfish, you would be at one with each other. And I'll be damned, all of a sudden you don't feel alone anymore. You don't feel abandoned anymore. All of a sudden you start to feel connected. You start to feel the presence and the peace and the love. If you don't outgrow fear from that, you're going to need someone's help other than mine, for damn sure. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I wanted to jump in and share. So thank you for the opportunity, because I can tell everybody, I did this exercise while Justin was doing it, and right now live with you guys, and instantly the fear is gone. Yes. And it looks easy for me, David, because it's on paper and I can do those things. So thank you. I'm excited for today. Thank you.
God would have you be. This isn't what he'd have you do. This is what he'd have you be. You do the exercise, but you be what it is you wrote. You be loving, you be kind, you be unselfish, you be pure, you be honest, you be trustful, you be. You want me to do something, I'm gonna do something that's not good. I'm gonna be what it is and let the do itself. You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you guys for allowing me to participate in this.
Thank you, David, for guiding us through that. And everybody out there who listens to this, I highly recommend that if you didn't go through it for yourself as you were following along here and do that, uh, get this template, practice it, put it into a working part of your life. As we were going through this, I just felt this. I felt this relief. I felt this weight come off my shoulders as I turned from relying on self to relying on God in that process. So, thank you, David. Thank you, Nikki, for walking through these couple of paragraphs here. Next time, we'll pick up about sex. We're going to be talking about sex. So, come back and get into that with us next time. In the meantime, put these things into practice. It is well worth your time because, well, it makes me trust in a power greater than myself rather than relying on self. Come trudge this adventurous and amazing road of happy destiny with us. Work it. You are worth it.